On this episode of Star Trek Universe, me and my companion meet Zefram Cochrane and his companion in our continuing quest to introduce Effie to all of the Star Trek. We'll talk about the original series 202, Metamorphosis, right after these words from helicopter spouse energy clouds trying to make playdates for their prisoner paramours. Welcome into Star Trek Universe. We are continuing our rewatch / first watch of Star Trek, the original series. I am David C. Robertson. I am he who does the rewatching.
I am Effie Pelders, and that means I am the one who first watches.
That's right.
It is my half of the, it's my part of the task division, and it's not fair, but...
Yeah, that's part of your legal contract.
Yeah. We have clearly signed papers to divide the numerous monies coming in through this show, I'm sure.
Piles of cents over the course of 10 years. All right, Memory Alpha synopsis. On an isolated asteroid, Kirk finds Zefram Cochrane, inventor of the warp drive, who has been missing for 150 years.
I love that they needed the first name to realize, oh, that Cochrane. Everybody's called Cochrane these days, you know.
It is a weird first name.
It is a weird first name. It is also a slightly weird last name. Come on.
They're like, Cochrane. Like, yeah, Zefram.
Zefram. Familiar.
I thought you were Johnny Cochrane.
I'm pretty sure that's the real name of one of those country singers I can't think of right now. Anyway. I mean, if you're called Johnny Cochrane, you might as well.
It was O.J. Simpson's lawyer.
Or something. Oh, right, that one.
Yeah.
If
the gloves do not fit, you must acquit.
Yeah. God rest his soul, or probably the devil. Anyway. It's topical humor that will, be even older news by the time this goes live. But
it's Johnny Cochrane's dreaded Chewbacca defense.
Do I know that one? I've heard of this.
It's from South Park.
Right.
Where I think it was Chef hired Johnny Cochrane, and they're like, or either that or he was against Johnny Cochrane. I don't know, but Cochrane was
something like that.
Oh my God, he's about to do the dreaded Chewbacca defense, and he was like, let's consider Chewbacca. He's from Andor. He's from the planet Andor with a bunch of little Ewoks. It doesn't make sense. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah."
I'm pretty sure I've heard that recently because it's become a real defense, which is not a great thing because it's nonsensical and it's a joke. But it happens.
Yeah. So this episode of Star Trek was written by Gene L. Kuhn. As I understand it, it's his last solo script. Oh. But more important world building with the creation of he who invented warp drive, Zefram Cochrane.
Indeed, I was about to think, what other world building is it? No, it's that. That's the world building. Fair enough.
Yeah.
He's a guy. He stuck around, I guess. This was a fun episode, slightly weird, like a different angle. I like that they had to be slightly more diplomatic for once instead of just shoving an EMP in someone's face and thinking that'll solve it. Mm-hmm. But it was nice to have the bit of contrast also of him discovering the century and a half of progress that he's missed out on. Mm-hmm. Even if he doesn't get to see a whole lot of it, but he'll he gets a glimpse. And it's once again it's a solid resolution, but I also feel like there's some gender politics along the way where I'm like, intriguing lines, choices, like this is the 60s. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But, there was some fun about the universality of male and female as constants throughout the galaxy. And I was like, oh, sure, in the 60s. Mm.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure there's some non-binary characters coming up eventually that will fuck with that one, but
yeah, in Discovery.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing I know about Discovery, probably.
They didn't really mess with it until very, very, very recently.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like,
so one of the things I really liked is continuing this through line. If you look back at Gene Alcoon's arc for Kirk, this line is salient. McCoy is saying, maybe you're a soldier so often that you forget you're also trained to be a diplomat. Why not try a carrot instead of a stick?
yeah.
I
It
loved
feels like
that.
a shoe-in. It's great, but it does feel like some retconning of, you're trained to be a diplomat, remember? Where I'm
Uh-huh.
like, we've seen a whole lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to get it in there where it's like, oh, he can also just, I don't know, try talking first.
Yeah. But yeah, so Kirk tells Cochrane, we're on 1,000 planets and spreading out. We cross fantastic distances and everything's alive, Cochrane. Life everywhere. We estimate there are millions of planets with intelligent life. We haven't begun to map them. Interested? And Cochrane says, how would you like to sleep for 150 years and wake up in a new world? I want to see that show. I want to see, like, can we get like a season or like 4 or 5, 2 episodes of Cochrane going with them and like seeing what happened after like he created warp drive.
Absolutely. We do not have the budget for that, but absolutely.
Well, we could have the budget for that. They ended it in a place where he's like, well, I got to stay here with the companion.
We ended it in a place where he's like, let me grow old on a farm. Love or lust, whichever, you know, you met her, I guess, in physical form that was hot enough to realize you've, like, it's an interesting, like, oh, we're going to spend some good years together based on her caring for me for a long ass time and me having just seen that she can also take a shape that I enjoy. Like,
Yeah.
it's the good basis for a relationship, clearly.
By the way, it is not lost on me that them bringing up the fact that, like, oh, the companion's a female, like, really does contextualize suddenly the companion's actions as being irrational, hysterical,
Yeah.
like a total, like, you know, helicopter spouse, but also you can say caring, nurturing, like all of these
Suddenly
unquote,
those
female,
words come up. Yeah. No, before that
tendencies.
it's very much like, oh, there's an adversarial, we assume it's hostile, you know, except to him. But then it's like, oh, it's a female, so the fact that she is nice to him must mean that she wants his dick. It's an interesting, we hadn't invented anything other than being straight yet. Clearly, that is very much in there where you're like, so there was you didn't realize it could have been affection until she, you know, was of the opposite gender, confirmed by magic tech, I guess. Tech that will always recognize who you are. Like, to me, that's an interesting concept in and of itself by virtue of, if you use that on a trans person, would the universal translator just give them a female voice if they were a trans woman or vice versa? Like, that's funny. There's something there. But other than that, we're just going to interpret the whole line about the universal binary as no, two ends of the spectrum. They're talking about the spectrum. It's fine. They didn't have the words yet. It works.
Yeah. I do think that there's probably a spectrum where even if you're non-binary, you fall closer on some place.
It really differs per person. Like, there's MBs I know who are just like, no, I do not have any of this gender stuff, and there are people who are like, no, I'm just straight down the middle, or I'm more to this side some days than I am other days, and I can relate to that in a sense where I early on in transition, when I really, when you're just, your mind is full of a constant drone of just pondering over what am I? How do I feel? Am I feeling like this right now? Where I can also only conclude, like, yeah, I'm a I'm a woman most of the damn time, and some days that's more womanly, and some days it's less, like, you feel less feminine. But there's no days where I feel masculine as fuck. There's just days where I'm like, I'm feeling a little more just gay.
Yeah, and then like how
just closer to the center, I guess.
And then how much of the quote unquote femininity is a real thing as opposed to a construct created by advertising agents.
Yeah. That's a thing too. Whereas like the concept of more feminine and less feminine because some, I don't know, looks and outfits are slightly more masculine but still feminine in a way. Like that type of bullshit is just based on what's the current beauty standard set by society at large that we're trying to conform to if you're cis and straight and white usually, and like, then you're over there on the really feminine end. It's not necessarily a real thing outside of, well, we're all making it up as we go along.
Yeah. I mean, as I understand
and apparently the universal translator is very good at measuring where you are on that spectrum.
Maybe only for
you haven't been inside our culture yet, but we will designate you a spot.
Maybe just for like energy clouds.
You're a woman.
Maybe just for energy clouds who don't actually have speech.
That might be the specific. Yeah.
So
it did sound more universal than that. That's why I went off on the whole tangent of like, yeah, but if someone's just closeted and you use that, will it just out them?
That feels like something that should be in like a Star Trek parody or something.
Absolutely. Like I would write this.
Deeper than anything that like any actual person writing a parody of Star Trek would think to go into.
Like there are much easier gags to create than going this off the beaten track, but like it would be funny. It would be, terrible for the person involved, but it would be interesting just to have like, oh, let's use the universal translator to communicate with this humanoid man, and then have a feminine voice come out where it's like, ooh, we're in the 60s. I'm not sure we can air this.
My mind suddenly like just goes directly to a joke about like having some giant Klingon warrior like coming on, being
right?
Like,
yeah.
And then the universal translator goes, "Hi guys," like total Paul Lynde, Bewitched, Uncle Arthur.
That works. Like it seems like a very masculine society. I haven't seen a whole lot of the Klingon Empire yet, but enough to realize that there has to be some gay men there. Just that level of militarization? Come on.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever seen a gay Klingon.
Oh, it's just right there, guys, waiting for you to do it.
But it was only a couple years ago we found out they have 2 dicks. So,
well, I'm looking forward to that episode. Are they all thruples? That would be interesting.
I don't know. Like we only know because someone said something about 2 dicks, and then there was a...
Which fucking screenwriter put this in?
I don't know.
Just to be a dick. Or,
I don't remember if it was like Lower Decks or what, but I remember Discovery actually showed a Klingon facing away from the camera taking a piss, and there are 2 streams.
No.
I don't remember who mentioned it first.
That's delightful. I mean, it feels like a thing Lower Decks would probably come up with, but I love that they're keeping it, across both shows. That's good. Oh, modern times. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah,
in 150 years.
Discovery, you flat out see like a naked Klingon woman having sex, and she's got like spikes on her titties and stuff. It's weird.
I mean, the longer you keep this franchise alive, the more you have to really be like, no. They're very different anatomically. They're not just in brown face.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite bits comes from Star Trek 6. It was not with a Klingon, but they were in a prison camp, Kirk and McCoy, and this big alien comes up and is just like, "Drop to job," screaming at him. And Kirk winds up kicking him in the knee.
Sure.
And the alien is just like, just like fades away. And Kirk says, I'm lucky that thing had knees. And this alien, who was played by David Bowie's wife, Iman, says, that was not his knees. Not everyone keeps their genitals in the same place, Captain.
Of course. Poor thing. Yeah.
Was one of my favorite things in Star Trek.
It seems right up your alley. I can imagine.
It does.
Yep.
It does.
Yeah.
I hate that I'm that guy.
Sometimes you can't help who you are. You just have to accept that's what you're living with for the rest of forever.
Yeah, well. It's just dick jokes and poop jokes for me, I guess. I don't know. What did you think?
The poop jokes are slightly less fun.
Yeah, well, depends. It depends.
But if you have to elevate a poop joke, you're probably going to need a dick joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, probably. What did you think of how disgusted Zefram Cochrane seemed when he found out that Thing was in love with him?
Yeah, that seemed both weird, and at the same time, he turned around really quickly, which made me question, why does this matter to you so much? Only if it's a cloud? Like, yeah, you've been, mind melting with that thing for a while, and now it's an issue that it's a she and she might have feelings. Mm-hmm. Like, that's unnatural. But if she inhabits the body of another human woman, that's perfectly fine and not unnatural, and we can bone now. There's a bit of an arbitrary line there.
Yeah, I think, and it wasn't about her being in love with him, because like the way he talks about it totally codifies it as sexual. Like he says, for all these years I've let something as alien as that crawl around inside me.
He's just mad he got pegged and has to admit that in front of, military men who just came out of a ship, I guess. It feels, there's a defensive that is very typical of, I feel emasculated. Where is my, she went inside me.
But he didn't know that she was a she.
No. So maybe he was just like, well, if a guy fucks me, that's just what men do when they're stranded on an island together. But a woman, no, sir.
I think the implication was that, this was a companion. This was like a pet or some other being who was like just having, a communion with me. Like, I didn't realize this was a thing. Like,
and they do talk about pets quite a bit, where I was like, wait, who's the pet? Like, which one? Because one of them seems far more powerful. Like, isn't Zefram just the pet? Is that not, like, and that could have been just as likely, but no, because she's a woman, it's not just her caring for a dog, it's her caring for a man.
Yeah.
Which, feels like you're jumping to conclusions a bit, but...
But it's also like, Zefram is like the guy out of touch. And he even says it. He says, is this what the future holds? Men who have no notion of decency or morality. Maybe I'm 150 years out of style, but I'm not going to be fodder for any inhuman monster.
Yeah.
Except he does. He is.
He's very quickly persuaded, eventually. But it has a semblance of, in modern times, you like there's an echo of you allow all sorts of interspecies, like what's next, gay marriage? Like it has that sort of conservative, like, my decency demands that I cannot be seen together with a space cloud of electricity, and which makes it fun in and of itself that the crew is just like, well, she likes you. Good for you. Like, this is... Go for it, man. Like, they're just like, I would love someone who would take care of me for 150 years. Seems like a pretty solid relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She's willing to abduct strangers from space just to keep you company, because otherwise you will not remain. Like,
So
It's yeah.
as it is important to contextualize what we're watching within the 60s, and I think it's pretty clear that the gender politics or gender identity and all that and homosexuality, I don't think that was what they were thinking about.
Oh no. It's clearly not intentional. But I can drag it out of there very easily.
You can, but it was the 60s, and this was interesting. Director Ralph Sinesky says, there was another question that remains unanswered. Gene Kuhn told me one of the advantages of being on Star Trek was that he was able to deal with issues that he couldn't do on any other series. For instance, he had written an episode that emanated from his own anti-Vietnam War feelings. The race issue was a major issue of the 60s. I never asked Gene, but I have since wondered if the Cloud Man love story in Metamorphosis was his way of dealing with that issue.
Sure. Good work. She's not just a woman. She's an Asian woman.
Yeah, but Cochrane was more comfortable when she looked like him.
Yeah.
But the point being that she was always this creature. She was always this person.
Yeah.
She just looked different.
Been the same. Yeah. If anything, it's like they make a point of it that, the diplomat hasn't just disappeared. She's still in there, which also feels confusing because there's like, is she okay with all this? Are we just, is she overtaken enough by the companion to just be like, he's hot. We'll do.
Well, there was certainly some sort of attraction at the beginning, although she was very standoffish and kind of hateful.
Yeah, exactly. It was more like he thinks she's hot. That's established. She reacted in a way where I'm like, she's taking this as slightly rude. Maybe don't.
Yeah,
especially
but she was also,
from what we've seen of her character already.
Yeah,
it is very much that.
But, on her deathbed, though, as she's dying, she's like, I want to be loved. I've never loved. I've never been loved.
Right. Yeah.
So that's supposed
there
to...
for a reason. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's supposed to be like... That's consent. For the 60s, that's consent.
Exactly. That's consent for, the space cloud to take space inside her body. And
another little problematic element of that episode, which is like... This is a career woman who stops wars, and
we'll find another one.
We'll find another woman that can stop that war. Yeah. But this is a very important person, but because she's dedicated her life to doing important things like this, she can't love. She's never loved.
Of course, you can't have
she's
both.
She's not a woman.
No. She's a career woman, meaning she indeed is standoffish and. So, but that's what I meant to say. Like, she consistently, projects strength. She is very clear in her boundaries and her demands, and she's, a bit bossy, which clearly means no man would ever touch that with a 10-foot pole. Apparently, that's the bit of the takeaway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, it is very quick that Zefram Cochrane goes from wanting to escape and go check out the galaxy and being utterly disgusted by the companion to being like, nope, I'll stay here with her. Yeah,
we can grow all together. Like, I know there's a lot of pussy out there in the universe, and I could see that, but I'm content as is. I've lived a long life.
The thing, though, is while it is a very quick turnaround, I have always had like the biggest crush on Elinor Donahue.
She's very pretty. I get that.
I grew up with her on the Andy Griffith Show, and then on this, and then like even when I was a little older, she was like, in her 60s on Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. I was still like, So I can't blame them.
No, I get it, but there's just so much weird like. Is this okay about the entire thing? Like
it feels real
the whole ordeal. It's there's and just there's a bunch of funny lines in the whole negotiating phase where it's like, okay, we're just trying to convince the cloud, both of what men needs as mankind as a whole needs obstacles to overcome. It's once again like, oh no, you can't just give us immortality. We'll get bored.
That's a Gene L. Coon thing. That's something else that he's brought up before. Like,
yeah. It's a theme at this point. Like, we've seen it many a time in this show.
Our species can only survive if we have obstacles to overcome. You take away all obstacles. Without them to strengthen us, we will weaken and die. Like,
cease to exist. Yeah.
It's like
that's the main thing he wants to convey every episode. Yeah.
You have all the staples of Gene L. Coon pretty much in this episode. You have, we need obstacles to overcome or we'll die, and you have the arc with Kirk where he's like, you've been a soldier so long,
your way through. Yeah,
but importantly, you have the world building and you have the chiding of the bureaucracy. If you'll notice at the beginning when she's angry that they didn't give her the proper inoculations, and there seems to be an implication, like McCoy says, like, it's like 1 billion to 1 that you'll get it. That's like a bureaucratic numbers answer where it's just like, we just didn't do it because probably you weren't gonna get it.
Yeah.
And now you did.
Odds are you wouldn't die, and now you got sick. So, well, whoops. That's not a great answer. Yeah.
So you also have that little like dig at the bureaucratic mentality and what Starfleet is.
Yeah. And McCoy's skills as a doctor are, up and down depending on the episode generally. So we'll have more to talk about next episode, I'm sure. But on this one, he's, just forgot to prevent instead of cure, and,
But, also, there's a nice message here of Gene Coon where, it does diminish what she does and, like, her importance, but also, like, Kirk's like, I'm sure we'll find another woman to stop that war. Is like,
just throwaway line. She wasn't that important. Like,
but in another sense, it is saying that, like, her happiness is more important than some diplomatic, bureaucratic bullshit thing.
Absolutely,
we can find
fair.
Somebody else to talk to these people.
Yeah, true. The only issue with that is, them being two exclusionary options. It's either be happy or have a career.
Yeah.
Fuck you for trying to have both, woman. Like, That's the only issue. It's a nice message to be like, no, definitely choose being a homemaker and marrying over having a career, because you can't do it all.
Yeah. You're more important than the government and the bureaucracy tries to tell you are. Your needs are more important. Also, you can't do both.
Yeah, your needs are being a housewife and getting some kids. Wonder why you didn't realize that yourself, silly girl.
The patriarchy does not give with both hands.
It sure doesn't. It takes away with, a bunch of them, but... Oh, Lord.
Yep. No. What else you got? You have anything else on this episode?
I'm mostly like, there was a thing I wanted to say like 3 topics back, and I'm not, just can't quite get at it. So I'm probably gonna have to accept that I forgot whatever it was I also wanted to say.
I'm sorry.
I'll get over it, hopefully, eventually.
Will you?
No, I'll keep thinking.
You'll
about
be listening to it later.
Episode. Yeah, and I'll text you like, I wanted to include this point on something of about the companion, and it just didn't happen. Yeah.
So I loved that Zefram Cochrane just said, like, I just wanted to leave. I was tired and I wanted to die. I wanted to die in space. That's all.
Yeah.
And
it was very much I was an old man and I was sick of this shit. So I went out to disappear. Like, bold move. Really, yeah, powerful.
So it's funny because people have different, differences of thought on this, and I've been on both sides of it. When you look at this version of Zefram Cochrane, he is at once exactly what you would imagine and not at all what you would imagine.
Yeah.
With the character that James Cromwell later portrayed in Star Trek First Contact in subsequent episodes. James Cromwell played Zefram Cochrane.
Okay.
Who was a sort of a boozy alcoholic who liked to play a jukebox and was always hitting on women.
And clearly needed about 150 years of rehab. Sure, cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. This is all canon.
Yeah, but it does, like, when you start to look at it, like, one, he's been, when he was an alcoholic, when we met him in First Contact.
Yeah.
This is at the end of the Third World War. Like, humanity's in shambles. He is a raging alcoholic trying to create, he still hasn't created the thing. He's trying to build it.
Right. He's working on it, but also losing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the Third World War, is that before or after or at the same time as the whole eugenics war thing from Space Seed? Like, when is comparatively?
Okay.
For my timeline's sake.
You know what? That is a question that Star Trek fans have had for years.
God damn
it. And they were separate things, and then at some point Star Trek started acting like they were the same thing. Just, one more thing we can toss to the temporal wars, shifting some things around. But at the very least, the Zefram Cochrane created warp drive after World War III in the embers of humanity, just amongst the ashes.
Yeah, sure.
That's funny. I hadn't even thought about that. His ship is called the Phoenix.
Hey.
There's
some symbolism going on here.
That had to have been some kind of subconscious thing on my part. So yeah, like, he does, like, when you start to look at this version of him, this initial version, where he, like, sees Elinor Donahue and he's like, whatever it was, the creepy thing he said, your food to a starving man. Yeah. And then he kind of looks around and realizes, like, oh, God, I'm a creep.
All of you are.
All of you. Don't. My hand's not on my dick. What are you talking about there?
We used to wear bulges in our pants 150 years ago. Don't worry about it.
But, like, he's definitely, like, a character who, like, him saying that he was just tired and he wanted to go into space to die, like, that is very much something that, like, the James Cromwell First Contact version would do.
Yeah, it makes total sense for him to, get suicidal eventually.
He was dying.
Up your life.
He was a super old man by the time this happened. Because, like, we meet him in First Contact, and he's already kind of, like, middle-aged. And then when we see him again, he's in Broken Bow, which was, like, the first episode of Enterprise. So that's, like, I don't know, 50, 80 years, something.
Damn. No.
So he's like, he's like super old there.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, he's dying. He wants to die in space, but he was also, like, a character. Will be established as a character from your perspective who isn't comfortable with his own fame.
That makes sense.
And, when these people from the future show up and they're like, that's where your statue's got to be. He's like, fuck this. And he leaves.
Yeah.
He just bolts. He just
get
nopes
the
out.
Fuck away from me. I can understand that.
And when Riker tracks him down and he, like, falls down into this little ditch, what he says is, I don't want to be a statue.
That's a good line. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's kind of an old school guy, and that sounds like it goes along with what we've just seen, with him being like,
yeah, definitely,
I don't know about you bastards now, I'm maybe out of style, but you guys aren't moral.
But I'm not fucking a cloud, god damn it. Is this normal to you?
Yeah,
they have never seen a cloud either, but they're open to the idea.
But also totally a fickle character later on. So, like, I could see him being like, you're a monster. Wait, you're kind of hot now.
Yeah. And I can imagine, like, it probably gave him a lot more hope. Like, it's surprising to me that it took 150 years for him to get so fucking suicidal and bored again that he was like, I need company. I'm dying out here. What the fuck are we doing? Like, I'd imagine, I probably, like, if you're already old as fuck, like, okay, you're rejuvenated, you have a period of time where you're like, I'm young again, hey, I haven't felt this in a while, like, let's wank, and then, but that wears off, like, within 20 years, like, what do you do after that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I did remember what I also wanted to throw in.
Oh, good.
Somewhere during your... Yeah. I was very proud of myself and made a mental note of, like, do not fucking forget this again. I wanted to talk about Kirk's whole strategy of trying to convince the companion that she couldn't feel love in the same way. Like, there was something keeping them separate because she wasn't human, you know? Like, that...
Uh-huh.
The trick worked eventually, but it also suggested one of those, okay... So, you have to have the bodily functions to express the kind of love we see as love. It felt very allosexual in that sense. There's not a lot of room for ace people, but just it's that struck me as odd. I was just like, what is preventing the space cloud from, like, they seem to have this sort of union thing that is probably way more intimate than anything you can do with a fellow human, so not sure what you're trying to get at, James T. Kirk, but I don't know. He has a perspective on relationships, so
yeah, I think that, you know, at the very least, you could kind of headcanon that to be like, look, this is not a human. It is a creature that doesn't quite understand how we feel. So I'm gonna, like, not really get into the intricacies of asexual people and all this other stuff.
No. The spectrum of human experience is not important right now.
And just be like, look, we need to jizz. Like, things are different.
That's the long and short of it. Yeah. And
depending on
who you're
doing
the memo.
it with,
She instantly understood. Right, I need tits. This woman right here has never loved anyone before. I love someone, so we should probably, you know, combine forces.
Yeah.
Because she's got tits. You know, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we've thoroughly undermined every semblance of a point this episode is trying to make.
I don't know. I mean, I think the point was that human beings are so illogical and irrational that they can't accept love unless it looks like them as something they recognize. And it's even said, as much as we give a shit for having Cochrane turn so quickly, he says, I can't leave her, I love her. Is that surprising? And Spock says, not coming from a human being. You are, after all, essentially irrational.
Good line, yeah.
Yeah, like, the whole plot hinges on, here's a notion of someone is different, but you both love each other, and you can't accept that love, though, because it's a different person, it's a different creature, it's something that you don't recognize. And now, as soon as you do recognize it, you're fine with it.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're trying to place that in the Vietnam context instead of the, you know, gender sexuality context, like, that's just, is this a whole pro-racial segregation? Like, what is this episode? Like, what is the moral if it ends up being like, yeah, well, the Asian woman loved you, but she needed to be white for you to truly stay with her and not, you know, fuck off and go back to the US.
Now see, based on the first two acts, the way I would rewrite this would be, you know, with Cochrane being like, I let that thing crawl around inside of me. Like, when he sees her, like, show up as Elinor Donahue, he should have flipped out and killed Elinor Donahue because I won't let you crawl around inside of this woman. Yeah. You're a monster.
Yeah. That would have worked. Yeah.
He should have killed.
And she became mortal in that moment. So, like, it would have been a resolution that would have been brutal and gut punchy, and also he would then, you know, spend the rest of his years in jail for murder. So that would have been a different show, but I love it. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that works. That works for me.
I do
somehow that's a better moral where it's like, no, that guy sucked.
Yeah, I do want to see like 30 years, 40 years, whatever it is, where he like gets up and his back like hurts and he's like, God, this is such a bad choice. I miss being young.
Yeah,
immortality was boring, but it wasn't painful.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
also, this is boring. Because we're still stuck on this damn farm.
We're getting too old to actually fuck. Like, what do we do now? Poor
we just
sod.
Fight. We just argue about stupid shit. Because this house is essentially
we're just
one
bickering
room.
Because your human half mind is, still doesn't like me, and your non-human half mind has never quite understood everything I have experienced in life. Yeah, no, it's a marriage doomed to fail.
Why can't you be a diplomat in our marriage?
Oh God, yeah, the throuple with two bodies would end up having, the diplomat as a relationship counselor. Oh God, this could be a sitcom in and of itself.
Yep.
Not a particularly good or long running one, but it would be a sitcom.
Right.
Oh Lordy.
All right, let's get some. Let's hit up some bleb-de-doop, some trivia here.
Ooh.
The first draft script ends with a joke. As the landing party leaves the planetoid, Spock wonders if Cochrane is a bigamist by having two entities in the same body for his partner.
Good question, Spock. I think we landed on that as well.
The shuttlecraft mock-up is not the same as the set used for the interiors of the Galileo. Kirk and company are all crouching as they emerge from the ship, yet the shuttlecraft interior set had a lot more headroom.
Yeah.
The scenes scenes of Cochrane communicating with the companion were all shot at one time. The set was then completely redone with his house added for all of the sequences with Kirk and company. The inconsistencies between the two versions of the same set can be seen in alien trees that are near Cochrane in one view and absent in the next. It's just a trick of the lighting, really. It's probably the companion messing with us.
Yeah, fair enough. Because we had the whole thing explaining like, oh no, everything you saw outside was just fake, I guess. And then, and then it looked different. And your brain goes along with it. So, it worked out fine.
By the way, this is something that I love in the episode, where it actually makes me tear up every time I see it. When she's like inside, when the companion's inside of Elinor Donahue's body, and she like pulls up her scarf and looks at him through the scarf, remembering what it was like to see him the way she used to. Symbolically, the colored patterns in the scarf worn by the commissioner are identical to the patterns in the energy field of the companion. This is shown clearly as she looks at Cochrane through the scarf near the end of the episode. This was not scripted or even intended by the production staff.
Okay.
Director Ralph Sinesky came up with the idea on the set, calling it one of those wonderful freak accidents that happen. Lovely.
That's great, because it was a beautiful moment. At the same time, I, on first viewing, was mostly like, wait, is that her skirt? Is she lifting her skirt before her eyes?
Her skirt?
I mean, I had, like, a couple shots later, I noticed, oh no, probably the scarf, never mind. But,
yeah, it's the scarf.
But before that, I was like, is she just flashing him right now? But that's where my brain went. She's only being human for a very short time. Like, it could have been the case. I'm just saying.
Yeah. A few scenes featuring Elinor Donahue had to be reshot because the original film negatives were damaged and couldn't be used. Portions of the planet set had to be rebuilt since other episodes were shot there by that time using different sets. Meanwhile, Donahue got pneumonia and lost 10 pounds. To hide this, they put Hedford's scarf around her neck and upper body. However, her weight loss is still visible on her face. The reshots were not directed by Ralph Sinesky.
Okay, Jesus.
Yeah, I never noticed that she looked any thinner to me.
No, I would really have to, look out for it to be like, wait, which scenes disappeared, That's interesting. Hadn't noticed, so that's a good thing. Yeah.
So, what do you think? You like this episode all right, or is it mid for you?
Good question. It's just, I think it's just good, the middle of the road. It's not exceptionally great. It's just one of those that sort of goes along pretty well. It's not one of those where I'm like, okay, nonsense that doesn't quite make sense resolution. That's nice, because there were a couple of those. Those are slightly below this. And it's not one of the greats, but, it's all right. I had a good time. I liked it well enough, and it took me a while to be like, oh, that's why they titled it this. Like, you weren't, which is always a nice feeling of like, I should have been spoiled, but I wasn't, because my brain didn't do the thing, connecting the two dots, and that's always nice. I enjoyed this one, yeah.
Yep. It's one of those that I always enjoy, but I'm always like, eh.
It's fine.
I'll watch it, I'm like, yeah.
They don't all have to be, old-time classics.
Yeah. All right, well, next time on Star Trek Universe, we journey deep into a Capellan cave where McCoy must part a Tier Widow's labe. We'll be talking Friday's Child. Labe is short for labia, you see.
Oh,
she had a child.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah. Now I do. Yeah.
All right. Until then, Jolon True, live long and prosper, and of course,
eat a dick, people. Don't forget to plank on that clit. It's like,
God help us.
Is the singular of labia labium, or how does that work? My Latin is escaping me.
I don't know.
I don't know either. This is a sincere question. I should stop recording.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.